So things we're going to cover today, I'll talk a little bit about the timeline. So everyone in here is a junior or the family of a junior, I'm guessing, unless we have some really eager sophomores, which is okay. And so from basically now until next winter, I'll talk a little bit about what you should be doing now and what you should be doing then. I will talk a little bit about what actually is in a college application. So Sean spoke a little bit about that, but what's included when we talk about the college application, what is actually included in that. So I will go into all of those details. I'll talk a little bit about what students are responsible for versus what families are responsible for versus what we are responsible for as a school. So we'll get into that, and then I'll talk a little bit about Somerville High. So the timeline. So before senior year, this means now, over the summer, before you come here on August 30th, or whatever the first day is this year, these are some of the things that you want to do. Now, this doesn't mean that you do these things once and then you're done, right, and then you don't come back to them. A lot of this is you're going to start the process now, and then you're going to be continuing to work on it in your senior year. So, one thing that's very important is you want to meet with your counselor. Many of you may have already done that. Your counselors are reaching out to you to have meetings about your college process. If they haven't done that yet, it just might mean that they haven't quite gotten to you yet. But you're welcome to kind of go to them and say, hey, I'm really eager to have this meeting, and they will do that with you. Just to go over your counselor, so that's Mr. LaBerge, Mr. Rochelle, Ms. Keymont, always want to say mom, Ms. Keymont, Ms. McGuire, or Ms. Eden. Those are the people that are really going to be bringing you through this process. So you want to make sure you're connecting with them about this. Can you just make sure it doesn't go crazy? Thanks. The other thing, this is still. All right, you're going to complete a counselor brag sheet on Naviance. So this is something that we'll be working on with students, and we'll be sending information about and sending emails to you about. But there is something called a counselor brag sheet. This is really important that you get this done now. It's basically a survey about yourself. Your counselor should know you pretty well by now, but there might be some things that they don't, or they don't know that you really want to be highlighted as they write your recommendation. So this is an opportunity for you to talk about what you've been involved with, and not just listing what you've been involved with, but what has been the most important thing you've been involved with? Why is that important to you? So if the more robust that counselor brag sheet is, the more your counselor is going to have to work with, both in the process and guiding you through this process, but also in writing your letter of recommendation. So that's something you're going to want to start this year. It's going to be a while. The other thing you want to do is register for and hopefully take your SATs, ACTs, or subject tests. The SAT is offered May, June, and August. Those are the tests that are left before senior year. I highly recommend that you take at least one of those. The ACT is in June, July, and then I think September, but that's during senior year. So you can take, I'll get into the kind of SAT, ACT in a little bit. You can take either the SAT or the ACT, but it's important to take one of them sooner rather than later for a couple reasons. One, senior year gets really busy. This college application process can be really overwhelming, and to be taking your first SAT in your senior year is going to feel even more overwhelming. The other reason is you want to get a little bit of data about how you do, because that might change what schools you're looking at. Now, it doesn't mean that your score is your score and you can never improve that. You certainly can. And certain schools care more about SAT than others, for sure. But you need to have that information so that you can be making smart decisions about what schools are my reaches and what schools are my safeties. So I highly recommend you doing that. You sign up for that on the College Board website. The deadline for the May test was actually yesterday. We're in the late registration period, so you can still register. There's just an extra fee. If you qualify for free or reduced lunch, you can get a fee waiver from us, so you don't have to pay for it. You get 2 free SATs and 2 free subject tests. I'm not going to get into subject tests a lot. If you want to know more about this, Mr. Rochelle is doing a workshop next, but subject tests are hour-long tests about a specific subject. So there's like literature and history and chemistry and physics and languages. Some schools require them. Not very many, but some schools do require them, and sometimes for a specific major they're required. So you just want to be aware that those exist, and you might want to take those ones. Gosh, I'm tired. All right, the next thing you want to do is start your college list. So you're going to want to start to think about. Now, for some juniors, that means you're putting every single school that you're even remotely considering on a list, and you wind up with like 25 schools by the time, and that's okay, because you're going to get rid of a lot of them. For some juniors, it means you don't really know, but you know you like these 2 schools, and at least that's somewhere to start. But you need to start thinking about which colleges you might be interested in, okay? My workshop next session will be about kind of how to use resources to create that college list, but we can certainly help. Your counselor can help you with that, but you really should be starting a list. Now, that list could be completely different senior year. You might start off with 5 schools this year, and then you don't apply to any of them in senior year. But that's part of the process, and you need to start that process now as you figure out what you're looking for in schools. I'm going to jump. I'm going to jump down a little bit to visiting colleges. That's part of this process, right? You start a list. Maybe you start because, like, I don't know, my cousin went there, or I've heard of it, or you do a search on College Board and you come up with a list of schools, and then you visit a school and you realize, just like Allison and Sean were talking about, oh wait, hold on. This isn't actually what I'm looking for, right? I actually don't want a school in the city, or I don't want a really big school, or I don't want a really small school. And that's important because then you're going to go back to your list and you're going to say, okay, well maybe I need to add more schools that are in the city or that are rural or whatever. So that is an important part of the process. I highly recommend you, if you're not doing anything for April break, if you're not going off to Costa Rica like a lot of people, then use April break to go visit schools. Use the summer to go visit schools. Very, very important to get out there. Okay, I'll jump back up. The teacher recommendation brag sheet is similar to the counselor brag sheet, which we'll be sending out to you. We'll be giving students instructions on. It's on your Naviance account. Again, that's really important to put some effort into. That's what your teachers are going to use to help you write, or to write your recommendation. Which means that simultaneously, you also need to be thinking about who might write my letters of recommendation. I am going to get into that in a minute about how to make that decision. But you want to start that process of thinking about that. You want to create a common application account. I'll talk about the common application to explain what that is, but you want to start that now. Sean from Tufts is doing a workshop on that next session, so if you want to learn more about that, he can help you. And then you want to start your college essay. It is like the single greatest gift you can give yourself to have a good draft of your essay before you walk in here senior year. It will change. It might change. You're going to edit it. You might even throw it out. But by having at least one solid draft by the time you walk into senior year, it's going to reduce so much stress for you. It's a big part of the process, and I highly recommend you use your summer to get that essay started. Thank you. All right, during senior year, again, a lot of this is just a continuation of what I just said, so I'll go through it fairly quickly. You're going to meet with your counselor again, more than one time probably. Your counselor is going to be important. You're going to finalize your college list. You're going to actually do the applications, okay? You're going to complete them and submit them. I'll talk about that in a minute. You're going to go through you're going to formally ask for your recommendations. Don't worry about the yellow sheet, pink sheet, but there's a formal request on Naviance. There's going to be a process we'll go over with you. There's a form you have to give your teachers. You have to do that next year. You might want to take the SAT or ACT again. A lot of times people take it 2 times. 3 times is a little bit of a stretch, and any more than 3, I would say, let's sit down and have a conversation about why we're doing that. Probably not necessary. But 2 times is not a bad idea. You're going to work on your financial aid applications. You can't actually do financial aid applications until next year. Okay, there are things you could think about right now, but you cannot do them until October of your senior year. And then we've got some events that we want you to come to. So that's in September, we do a post-high school planning night where we're going to give you those forms, and we're going to say, here's what you do to ask for your teacher recommendation. Here's the office you go to for your financial aid appointment, and all those details. So please come back. Okay, so what is in a college application? I'm going to list all of these, and then I'm going to explain all of them. So if any of them are confusing to you, don't worry. There's the college application itself, right? So that's where you put everything from your basic info, your name, to your essay, your activities, all of that. There are teacher recommendations. Most colleges either require or highly recommend teacher recommendations. There are counselor recommendations. There's your transcript, SAT and ACT scores, application fees, which I'll get into, and then the financial aid application. All right, so let's see. The common application. Raise your hand if you have heard of the common application. I'll start there. Raise your hand if you know what it is. Raise your hand if you know it so well that you could explain it for me. Great, okay. But that's good that many of you know what it is. So the common application is basically an account, it's a website, it's an account that you'll create online, and it's one application that goes to many schools, hundreds and hundreds of schools accept the Common Application. Basically a way to streamline the process, right? So you used to have to fill out, an application for BU, and then an application for Northeastern, and an application for UMass. And now you do that once, and then you just add your schools and you send it off to them, all on the same website. A lot easier, right? So there's one exception. There's one, it sounds really easy, it gets a little harder, I'll tell you in a second, but mostly it's easier. So that is important. You can start that now. They used to not let you start that until senior year, but now you actually can start that process and it'll all carry over. So if you want to get a lot of that out of the way, start thinking about your activities, and that's something you can do now if you want to. There are more than 500 colleges and universities that accept it. More and more are accepting it every year. There are some that don't accept it and probably never will. Our neighbors down the street in MIT like to do things their own way. They will probably never accept the Common Application, so you're going to have to do the MIT application. There are some other schools like that, a couple of the state schools, but many of them are on the Common App. Okay, so what's on it? Basic information. So a lot of this is just kind of time-consuming. It's your name, it's your birthday, it's talking to your parents about, where do they work and how long have they worked there, and how long have you lived in the house that you've lived in, and listing all of your courses, and kind of basic information like that. There's also a section for activities. This could be done in 10 minutes. I highly recommend you take longer than that, okay? So there's a space where you can list all of your activities that you're involved with in school or outside of school. So an after-school job, it counts. Family responsibilities that you have, that counts, okay? So you need to list kind of all of the activities in your life that are important to you. So if you have, if you clear the table after dinner every night, I don't know if that's an activity, right? But if you have significant responsibilities where you take care of your younger brother, you walk them home from school, and then you care for them, that is a significant activity. This is kind of like a resume, right? So you could just kind of list them and say like, oh, basketball team, Frisbee, high school musical, and that's fine. Or you can actually describe what does that mean, right? Like what leadership roles did you take? And what part did you play? And what position do you play? And what teams did you make? And so that makes a difference for schools. Just listing activities or knowing that you were the one that every day got the cones set up for practice and you clean them up after practice every day, or whatever the thing is, okay? So just be specific. Then, religious activities count too. Sorry, I didn't mention that. But if you spend a significant amount of time at your church or your synagogue or whatever it is, that's important. And then it also includes the essay. Sean was talking about this a little bit. There's something called the personal statement. There are 7 questions that you can choose from. The 7th question is any other topic that you want to write about. So essentially you can write about anything, okay? But there are prompts if that helps you think about maybe an essay topic. This is important. It's 650 words. That is a hard cutoff. So it's not a very long essay. And there isn't something specific that you have to write about. It just has to feel like it's authentically about you, okay? So we'll, Sean's doing a little thing on the essay later. We're gonna have plenty of support for you for your essay, but this is kind of the main essay that goes to all the colleges, all right? So if you can get this done over the summer, you'll be in good shape. Okay, so here's where it gets a little harder with the Common Application. So you fill everything out once, you send it out to all the different schools. But then there are some schools that want a little bit, or most schools want a little bit more information, okay? So that ranges from UMass Boston will ask you as simple as like, what do you want to major in at our school? Do you want to live on campus or not? Is any member of your family an alum? It'll be 3 simple questions and that's it. But then there are schools that are going to ask you additional essay questions, like Tufts. The most common supplemental question that you will get is why our school? Why Tufts? Why BU? Whatever it's, why Bates College? Why, I don't know, UC, not UCLA, that is just as important, if not more important, than your personal statement. Those specific essay questions or short answer questions that a college asks you, think about it. They have decided that these are the most important ones to them. That's why they're adding it. That's why they're saying, if you want to apply to our school, yeah, that's great, you did the essay, you have to answer these questions too. Those are very, very important to a school. And oftentimes, people spend a lot of time on your main essay, get to your supplements, and then have to rush through it because you didn't plan accordingly, okay? So please take the time to carefully consider these supplements. Questions on Common App before I go forward? Great. So then, oh yes.
Just a really dumb question.
Probably not.
Create Common App. So I assume there's a way to just kind of create this and save it and go over it a bunch of times before you push the button and send it, right?
Absolutely, yes. So you do not have to do it all in one sitting. You can start it now, save it. You can submit it to some schools and not submit it to others yet. There is a limit to how many times you can edit it after you submit it. I think it's a little technical, but yes, you don't have to submit it right away. You can work on it and edit it as much as you want. Yes.
Specifically, are those limitations to the editing process?
So they actually just changed it, so I don't want to give you the correct. They used to say you could only edit it twice after you submit it. I honestly don't recommend that. I would say just be done. By the time you're going to submit to BU, be ready to submit to Northeastern. People use it sometimes because they want to like put something specific in their essay, which I think is just getting into dangerous ground, because if you don't proofread that correctly and you're like putting something about Northeastern in that might go to BU, I would just recommend being done.
How would I get those resources that could give me the information?
It'll be on Common App online.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you.
But yes, you can edit it afterwards, I just wouldn't recommend it. So then there are some college applications that are not on the Common App. So like I said, MIT, a couple other schools. The UC schools, anybody thinking of applying to California schools? Okay, so the UC schools are not on Common App. They have their whole own process. So yeah, they have their own little Common App. So that's a whole different process. So some schools, you'll just have to do their own essay. Oftentimes it's actually simpler than the Common App, except in the cases of the really selective schools like the MITs. But it'll be a very similar format. Your basic demographic information, they may ask for an essay, they'll ask you about your activities. It's just, you just have to do it. You'll go to the school's website and you'll do it through their website. Okay, so in the application itself, whether it is Common App or through their own application, here are some of the things they are looking for. So I talked a little bit about this, but the essay itself, there's not one topic that's better than others. Kids will come and say, oh, I don't know, I haven't done anything exciting, or I haven't had some like major life-altering event. It doesn't have to be about that, okay? Sometimes the best essays are sort of about the smallest things, as long as it's about you, okay? Sometimes it doesn't have to be about what you want to be when you're older. It doesn't have to be about, again, like some big adversity that you overcame. It certainly can be, but all it is a chance for you to communicate, just like Sean was saying, who you are and what your voice is, so that they can read that and they can kind of figure out, like picture you at their university, okay? And picture you in their classrooms and in their student groups and, leading discussions on things. So it just has to be about you. And you have to answer the question. That's a big problem too. Sometimes the question is like, write about someone that you admire and how that has affected you. And people write about someone they admire and never talk about themselves. And then the school's like, that's great, now I'd really like to offer your grandmother admission to our school, and I know nothing about you, right? So you just have to be careful, make sure you're talking about you're making it about you. And this can be really tricky, so we are here to help. And you might write a couple different versions of this. I have lots of resources to help you kind of with the brainstorming process, so let me know if you want that. And then activities, like I said, it's important to how you describe them, how you present them is really important, okay? And then in terms of activities, I've got a bunch of juniors sitting in front of me. This doesn't mean like go out and join 5 clubs next year, okay? So quality is much more important than quantity. So if you've been involved in the musical since you were in 9th grade, that is a significant time commitment. That is a significant, that shows what your interests are. That doesn't mean you have to go out if you're like, oh, I only did that in one other club. That's okay, all right? That's who you are. That's what you had all of your time dedicated to that. So it is important that they see a commitment. It is important that they kind of, and that it makes sense in the context of your whole application, okay? They can kind of tell if you just joined a club to join a club, right? So that's that. Anything on college applications themselves before I go through all the kind of other materials that go with it? Yes?
So, because I'm a English language learner, I have to take a test, so where should I take it? Before my junior year or my senior year?
Are you talking about the TOEFL?
No.
Will you remind me when I get to the SATs to ask you that, to answer that question? Okay. Great. All right, teacher recommendations. So now is the time to start thinking about who you are going to ask for your teacher recommendations. You usually need 1 or 2 teachers. There are some schools that will allow you to submit 3, 4 recommendations. It gets really tricky when you try to do that because some schools will not allow you to do that. 2 is more than sufficient. If you have some real strong, legitimate need to ask a 3rd teacher, talk with your counselor and we can work it out. But 2 is usually plenty. You don't have to ask specific subjects. Some people think, oh, I have to have 1 like humanities and 1 math science. That's not true. The way you can kind of think about this and help you choose, it should be a core academic teacher. Now, the exceptions to that are, if you want to go study art, then you should ask your art teacher, right? Okay, so that's fine. But otherwise, it really should be one of your core academic classes. So English, math, science, social studies, world language. Or if you are in CTE, that shop that you're in can be one of your core academics. It should be a teacher that knows you well as a student. So this happens a lot. Kids come in and they say like, oh, but I'm so close with Miss So-and-so. And that's wonderful. But the teacher recommendation is to write about you as a student. So you may know that teacher very well, but do they know you as a student? And then they'll say, oh, well, no, I only have them for an elective freshman year. I haven't had them since then. And that's great. Maybe they can be an extra personal recommendation, but the teacher recommendation should be about you academically, as a student. When college admissions officers are reading this, they want to know, what are you going to be like in our classrooms, okay? What are you like in discussions? How do you handle group projects? How is your voice shown in the classroom, or through your work, or whatever it is? They're not one specific thing they're looking for, but they're trying to figure out if you're going to fit academically. The counselor recommendation is the place to put the rest of your life together, right? So they're the ones that should talk about all your other activities, or maybe if there's a family situation you want them to explain, or anything like that. The teacher recommendations might also mention that you were the captain of the soccer team, or that, because it affected your work, or whatever. But the main part of your teacher recommendation should be about you academically, okay? So think about who knows you well academically. You don't have to have gotten A+ in every single test that you took in that teacher's class. If you struggled to pull off a B, but you went after school all the time, and your teacher saw how hard you worked, and they saw the progress that you made, well, that would be a perfect person to ask for a recommendation. If you got like only C's and D's in their class ever, I would maybe think twice about that teacher, okay? But not necessarily. There's always an exception to that. So, talk to me or your counselors if you're having trouble figuring out who that should be. You go down, sorry, I might have. They're submitted through Naviance. We'll go into the kind of process of that next year. You're going to request them on your Naviance account. They're going to submit it through your Naviance account. There's no mailing. There's no, it all goes through that. So we'll go over that process with you senior year. Any questions about teacher recommendations? We usually have some. Yes? That's a good question. The question was, do we get to read the teacher recommendations? As part of our process, as part of the yellow form that I sort of kind of referenced earlier that you're going to hand in, there's going to be a question about whether you waive your right to see your recommendation. The reason we do that, and you should do that, we encourage you to do that. If you don't waive your right, the teacher actually, or counselor might say, like, I don't think I want to write this. Now, it's not because they want to secretly write these terrible things about you and they don't want you to see it, okay? It's because colleges ask the same thing. On your Common App, there's going to be a question that says, do you waive your FERPA right, which is an educational act, like a privacy act, basically, where you get to see all of your educational record. They're going to say, do you waive your right to see this recommendation? Any idea why? And colleges want you to waive that right. Certainly not required to, but that's what they encourage. Yeah?
So they can get like a real picture.
Exactly. So when your teacher writes these wonderful, glowing things about you, they know that it's true, and it's not because your mom was bullying them over the phone to write a good recommendation, okay? So it feels a little weird to have to waive a right to see something, so I recognize that, and I'm happy to talk to people about that, and you're certainly not required to, but again, it is really best practice because they want to know that it's important that they're confidential. Now, if a teacher chooses to show it to you, they can certainly do that. A lot of times at the end of the year, after the applications have gone out, teachers say like, hey, I wrote this really nice letter, I want you to see it, and that happens a lot, but it's really to protect the integrity of the recommendation itself. Counselor recommendations. So first of all, don't assume that your counselor is going to write a recommendation for you. Not all colleges require them. So you need to have that conversation and say, hey, listen, I'm going to be applying to four-year schools that are going to need a recommendation, so they can start thinking about that. Their job is, like I said, to kind of put the whole picture together. Their job is to pull you together as a full human being, all right? So if you had maybe a rough time academically sophomore year because you got a concussion in soccer and you had a hard time, that's their job, to explain, hey, like, look at this rough patch, this is what happened, right? They're gonna probably discuss with you, if there's anything you feel really strongly you want them to write about, you should tell them that as a family or a student. They may, you certainly can't dictate your letter, but if there's something that you say like, hey, remember when I did have those really rough grades, do you mind mentioning that it was because of the concussion? Like, I think that's important for colleges to know. Just that you're welcome to kind of have that discussion. It also, sometimes those special circumstances are maybe really difficult things that you've gone through, and students often feel that the pressure that they have to write their essay about those difficult things, sometimes that's actually really hard to do, and so it might be helpful, if you want, to have your counselor kind of address it. Really difficult, we've had students who, had really difficult home situation for a year, and they don't want to have to feel like they have to explain it, but they feel like colleges should know. So feel free to talk to your counselor about that. Go ahead. All right, your transcript goes, this is an easy one. Your transcript has your grades, your all the courses that you took, and all the grades that you got. By the time we submit it senior year, it will include, as long as you're not applying early, if you're applying for the regular decisions, which is in January, it will include your first term grades and the courses that you're taking senior year. We then update it in mid-year. So then we send it to all of your colleges again after the end of second quarter. Yes?
So in terms of grades, is it like general grades or is it like super specific?
No. It's the grades that you got each quarter. Yeah. So what are they looking for in your transcript? They're looking for you to have challenged yourself, okay? And they're looking for you to have done your best work. Now, does that mean every single student needs to have all AP courses by the time they're in senior year? No, right? But if you're getting straight A pluses in honors English every single year and in honors history, and you never challenge yourself with an AP, they might just ask that question. Doesn't mean you're gonna kind of get knocked out of the team, but they want to see, oh wow, they did really well in honors history 9th grade, so they tried AP US history sophomore year, or whatever it was, okay? It's important to challenge yourself. That looks different for everybody. So sometimes the honors course is how you're challenging yourself. So that looks different, but when you are ready to, it's important to challenge yourself with those courses. Have you done your best? Showing improvement. So if you had a rough time adjusting to high school freshman year, that's okay, right? You want to show improvement. It's not good to go the other way. So if you started off really strong and you're starting to lose your motivation, come talk to someone, because we've got to pull that back up, because these most recent grades are going to be really important. Great. SATs and ACT scores. Okay, so like I said, you're going to want to take SAT or ACT. Those are completely interchangeable. If you decide to take the ACT and you do better on that, you can just send that. You don't have to send your SAT scores. They are completely interchangeable. Okay? Schools accept either one. They use them to standardize admissions, right? So it's kind of a necessary evil, but it exists. There is an August SAT this year, which is fairly new. It started last year, so I highly recommend that. I will say we do host it here with very limited capacity. So we don't have a whole lot of proctors that are available in late August. So we have a limited capacity here. If you want to take this August SAT, I would sign up like when you get home today, because there are not a lot of schools that offer it, and it goes very quickly. We had some students who had to go to New Hampshire last year to take it. It's not great. Okay, so then there's also the TOEFL, which I remembered your question. I'm proud of myself. If English is not your first language and you've only been speaking it for less than maybe 5 years, you may need to take an exam called the TOEFL. It does cost a little bit of money, so we should talk about, there are some reduced fees that we can get. And you can take it next year, okay? And we have a lot of resources to help you with that. There's an oral part, there's like a listening part, and a written part. So this is important. Students or families, you are responsible for submitting your SAT and ACT scores. That is not part of your high school record. You are responsible for submitting that. This is not the only time you're going to hear that, I promise, but it's important for you to know that. So you'll go directly through your website, through your College Board website, you'll submit your scores directly to schools, okay? The SAT does cost money, sending scores does cost money, so just be aware that that might start to add up a little bit. Questions about SAT, ACT? Not, yeah.
Are there any financial reprieves when it comes to sending SAT scores?
So if you signed up with a fee waiver, if you get free or reduced lunch, if you signed up with a fee waiver, you get 4 sends for free. So you can send to 4 colleges for free. And then anybody who signs up at all, even if you paid, you also get 4 for free, but you have to send them within a certain period after taking your exam, which is usually before you know your scores, so it's a little bit not ideal.
Does it cost money to resend, like, if you take a separate SAT?
Yes, yeah, so you probably want to wait until like your last SAT to send everything, because then you can send everything at once rather than, you know, having to pay more.
How long does it take after taking the SATs to get your scores back?
About 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
The essay sometimes takes a little bit longer.
So the SAT and the ACT, if you take, you should probably take both and just see which one you do better on, right?
Yeah, it's a good strategy. Not everybody wants to. We don't have as many ACT prep resources, so like we don't have as many classes, so sometimes people are a little hesitant about that. But yeah, absolutely. Take one of both and see how you do.
And so both work for all colleges?
Yes.
Okay.
There are some schools, before I do application fees, that are not requiring SAT scores, and they are growing. So a number of state schools have recently dropped SAT score requirements, so UMass Boston, UMass Lowell, Salem State, Framingham State, there are probably more that I'm forgetting off the top of my head, have now said you don't have to submit SAT scores. So if you're just someone who really struggles on tests, that's okay. There are also some of the most selective schools in our country are test optional, have just said, you know what, this test doesn't measure what we need it to measure. We care about your grades, we care about who you are as a person. So there's a really cool website called fairtest.org if you want to look for test optional schools. Bates College is in Maine, very selective private liberal arts school is test optional. Brandeis in Waltham is test optional. Many more. Application fees. Believe it or not, it costs money. This whole process costs money. To submit, every application that you submit, there's a fee, okay? So they could be anywhere between like $50 to up to $100 for each application. So if you get free or reduced lunch here, we can give you 8 college application fee waivers, so you'll be able to send 8 for free. If you do not, it's important to know that this is no small expense. This adds up if you're applying to 8 or 10 schools. So just be aware that this is a thing. There are some schools that will just give you school-specific fee waivers, so anybody who wants to apply to Tufts, it's free for Somerville students. If you go visit a school sometimes, they'll give you a little fee waiver that says like, hey, you can apply for free, just use this code. So there are ways, and certainly if you're struggling, maybe you don't get free reduced lunch, but you can't afford to pay all of these fees, you can certainly contact schools and say, hey, this is gonna be hard for me. And usually they'll be able to give you, reduce it or waive it for you. Yes?
So when you apply through the Common App, it's a separate fee for each school?
Correct, yes. Every time you submit, you have to pay. Yeah. Financial aid. I won't talk too much about this, but, oh, well, I guess you guys are missing the workshop on that, so I will talk a little bit about it. But your financial aid applications will be done next year. So there are 2 main applications called the FAFSA and the CSS profile. The FAFSA is the one that every college is going to ask you to do, and then certain private schools will ask you for the CSS profile, which is a more in-depth financial aid application. In October is when they both become available, October 1st, so you can fill them out then. And we have someone here, as I mentioned in the beginning, from UAspire 2 days a week to help you with that process. You certainly don't have to use those services. If you feel really comfortable filling it out for your family, that's fine, but they are there to help students and families. You know, families can come in and meet with them, students can do it, and they'll help you with that whole process. There's a lot I could talk about here, but I guess I'll just ask if anybody has questions about the financial aid process. No? Okay,
I'm sorry, did you say it was due in October?
It becomes available in October. The due dates are specific by school. It's usually around the, like a month after the application process itself. If you're applying early decision, a lot of times they'll ask for it with the early decision deadline, which is in November. So depends on the school. Actually, because I should mention that, because of that, so if you think about October, you think about what taxes you have ready, you don't have that year's taxes, obviously, so they use prior year. So this year, when students were filling it out, they used 2016 taxes. So basically the last taxes that you prepared is what they will use for your financial aid process. So student responsibilities. Okay, so students in the room, or families if you want to communicate this to your students later. So it is your job to sign up for your SATs and ACTs. It is your job to do the college research. Now, does that mean we're not going to help you at all? No, of course not. But, you know, we can give you the tools, and then I can't tell you how much of a difference it makes if you are the one who's able to go onto the college website and really figure out how to navigate that. Do they have the major that I want? Do they have the student club that I want? Where are they located? What kind of supports are there? How do I schedule a student tour? We will show you how to get all of that information, but this process is so much better when you own that, when you feel empowered to really do all that research yourself. This is your process. I am not going to that college. You are, okay? So you need to really be invested in doing that research. It is your job to do the college applications. Again, we're not just gonna kind of tell you this once and then hope that you get it done. There are a lot of support. There's a lot of support available, but it is your job to know when your applications are due. It is your job to do that essay. It is your job to get everything done with as much help as you want from us, but it's in your court. You need to request your teacher and counselor recommendations. You need to request your transcripts. Then it's our job to send them, okay? Then it becomes our responsibility. But you need to follow the process, and you need to meet the deadlines for that. Every single year, we have students who come and say, hey, I need a recommendation, it's due tomorrow. Your counselor cannot write that. It is not fair to them. They probably have recommendations that are due tomorrow that someone asked them for 2 weeks ago, right, that they've been carefully planning out when they're gonna write them. They're probably gonna say to you, okay, the deadline's tomorrow. I will write your recommendation, it's not going to be in by tomorrow, okay? You have to let them know, and this is gonna be all in the forms that you get next year, you have to let them know at least 2 weeks in advance to write your recommendations, okay? And that's really not a problem. It really shouldn't be a problem because all you have to do is request it from them. As soon as you know you need one, you can ask it from them. But please don't ask them at the last minute. Same thing with your teachers. They're not gonna be able to write a good recommendation for you in 1 minute. Did I get that one? Okay, the last one is, or the last 2, you need to check your email. You have to be checking your email. Colleges are gonna send you things, I'm gonna send you things, financial aid is gonna send you things. You submit your FAFSA, you think you're done, and then you get an email that says, hey, you've been pulled for verification, we need all these documents sent to all these places by this deadline, and if you never read your email, guess who just lost their chance at a lot of financial aid, okay? Please read your email. Get in the habit now, it's very important. And then you have to send your SAT scores, which I mentioned before. All right, so families. It's your job to, assist in whatever way possible, help them stay organized, and help communicate with us, okay? So if your student's struggling, reach out to us. If you're confused about something, reach out to us. We're here to help. We can't, we're not mind readers, so we certainly can't figure out a problem if we don't know it exists. And then do what you're doing right now, which is being here, which is great. And then financial aid is really where your students are gonna need you. They're gonna need family information, so family taxes, W-2s, statements like that. So they're gonna need you for that. It is our job to communicate with you, to kind of guide you through this process. Like I said, everything on that student responsibility list, it is ultimately your job. It's our job to help you with it, okay? So you're not alone, but we do need you to really learn that process. We need to send your transcripts and your school information, and we send your counselor and teacher recommendations. All right, and then for you to know, kind of coming up, we have, or the 2 main ways you're gonna get support. One is X-Block meetings. So we've started doing those with juniors. We have a couple more of those happening in June where we kind of just pull you together to give information like, hey, here's where your counselor brag sheet is. Here's where your teacher recommendation brag sheet is. So you'll get a pass if have you all been to an X-Block meeting already with your counselor? Great, okay, good. So we'll do that a couple more times throughout the year. And then individual meetings should be happening with you and your counselor about your college plans. If they haven't gotten to you yet, it's okay to kind of knock on the door and say, hey, can we have our meeting, all right? Because that's really gonna be very important.